Hello and welcome, everyone. I am so excited about today's topic. Very glad to have all of you here. Looking forward to a quick 30-minute conversation. And I just got to start out by saying to me that coaching supports diversity is just so totally obvious. And I hope most of you feel that way too. So let's dive in. Where are we going? Our agenda for the conversation today will have some working definitions, just a few. We're going to talk about coaching for establishing goals wrapped around the whole idea of diversity, coaching for culture, coaching teams, coaching individuals, and then we'll do some examples of coaching questions around diversity, and of course share resources, access to support, and Q&A time for those of you that want to hang around with additional questions. Now, a few of you submitted questions ahead of time that were on topics unrelated to the focus of this webinar. I am happy to hang around afterwards and answer those questions one-on-one. Glad to do it, so feel free to stay. We can cover it that way. For those of you that have questions related to today's topic, please feel free to type them into your question panel. I'll monitor that all the way through. Or if you want to come on live, raise your hand. I will share with you, we do record this. The recording will go on our YouTube channel, and everybody that's registered will get a direct link to it. So hopefully that answered some of those questions right on the front end. Let's get going. So the working definitions that we're going to have today are on coaching, diversity, and culture. There's so many more definitions we can go into. That's enough to get us going, to get us started. So the definition of coaching, this comes from the International Coach Federation. I'm guessing most, if not all of you, are familiar with the organization. If you're unsure, do ask. Let me know and we can explain that. The very definition here, just as it speaks to what the relationship is about, to me it speaks to how coaching from the get-go supports diversity. It's a strategic partnership. That we are partners says something. One of the things we all talk about in coach training is that a coach is to put aside their judgments. We all have biases. We know that. Some of them we're aware of, conscious biases. And then, of course, we have subconscious biases. So as coaches, we work really hard to get rid of the biases we're aware of, to manage them, whatever it is, and identify potential subconscious biases so we can keep those out of the way too. And we talk about separating those things and truly being there and with the client. So it's that strategic partnership. As a coach, we empower the client. We put them in charge of figuring out their own goals, their own action plans, how they move past their obstacles, and we support them in achieving what they want. So that sets up the ownership of what's going to happen, and is one of the reasons coaching is so effective. To me, it very much speaks to coaching supporting diversity. Our working definition of diversity, I have found this on Merriam-Webster, and I know there's going to be so many more definitions. So let's get something we could work with and we'll go from there. It is the condition of having or being composed of differing elements, especially, and it's talking about the inclusion regard of different types of people, whether it's different race, different culture, whatever it is, in a group or an organization. The definition of culture, on a Google search, the dictionary definition that came up is the customs, arts, social institutions, and achievements of a particular nation, people, or other social group, which can also be a workplace group. So we've got our working definitions. What do we do with coaching? Well, think about coaching in terms of establishing the goals. That's a big part of what we all do as coaches. We explore objectives with the clients. If you're working in an area of increasing the diversity, wanting to make diversity the norm, some of those objectives may be openness towards others. It may be the workplace relationships that are there. Having diversity as a norm inside the organization, functioning effectively with each other, with the diverse people, and maximizing the benefits of diversity, because there are so many benefits. So the coach is working with individuals, groups, teams, etc., in creating the objectives, empowering them to figure out, hey, what's important here? And diversity is a hot topic right now. The coach supporting that conversation helps them move it forward. When they're establishing the goals, the coaching process empowers the ownership of the goals. So instead of me saying to somebody, hey, you've got to accept diversity as the new norm, it's me putting them in charge of figuring out what it is they want and how they're going to get there. And they figure it out. That's ownership. And when you have the ownership, that's where you get the follow through. So it's a big difference. It empowers them to strategize and plan. How are they going to make diversity happen? How are they going to make it their new norm? How are they going to ensure the openness, etc.? And a coaching culture in and of itself supports diversity. Think about what coaching is all about. It's about being open. It's about being accepting. And so, yes, it supports diversity. Great question, Helene put in. Do I have any suggestions for becoming more aware of conscious or subconscious biases? You've taken the IAT test. So there are, as you mentioned, the IAT, there are those tests that you can take. Harvard is doing a huge study on diversity. We're doing a program on diversity and connection coming up, and we talk about resources there. Because I don't have them at my fingertips, I'm going to say at the end, if you'll hang on for a minute, I will pull it up and we can talk about some of them specifically so I can put them out and answer that more completely. I know they're there. Okay, next, coaching for culture. So in an organization, it's about creating the culture that's open and accepting. So coaching is a positive approach. It's proactive. Coaches are curious, affirming, empowering. So think about the impact that has on an organization. When you're taking coaching into an organization, you're modeling it. The people that are engaged with a coach, either individually or as a group or as a team, learn that based on the modeling of it. When you create the training inside the organization on coaching, you're also creating the awareness of the various tools and techniques to support this. And think about the impact that has in terms of diversity, in terms of connecting all different people. When we're positive, proactive, curious, affirming, and empowering, it absolutely is foundational to supporting diversity, being there and being there effectively in a way that serves everybody. Coaching for culture means we start from the top down. Just as in any organization, if you want to have a coaching program, you've got to have buy-in at the top and it trickles down. The best practice is to have external coaches for high-level leaders and then have coach training for employees and provide internal coaches for entry to mid-level. This is going to create a culture, a coaching culture throughout the organization, and that supports diversity. I really am hoping if you have questions here, ask them, because to me it's so patently obvious. I'm unsure what I'm not explaining. So please do ask questions here. Coaching is all about being open, accepting, and figuring out how to support everybody to their maximum potential, being them best selves. Coaching in teams sometimes works on the relationships within the team or between the team and with others. Coaching can work on tasks that the team is doing. And it can also work on their approach. So when you think about having a diverse team, bringing in different people, and maybe you've got somebody in there that, hey, they're not open or they're not accepting. And the coach is there working with that team, creating that openness and acceptance through the very process of coaching, having conversations to create the understanding of the various people on the teams, who each person is, how they think and function, and then figuring out how they best work together in a way that's effective for everybody involved. The coach is working with the team very specifically in terms of defining tasks they're going to complete, who's doing them and how, and helping manage that and their approach to doing it. Now, many of you have done coach training with us, and you remember we walked through a conflict management process. So I think sometimes on teams or in groups in the workplace where diversity is coming and you've got people resisting it, the process of conflict coaching can be absolutely powerful, where you take everybody in. So this is a great comment. I'm going to read this to everyone because this is really good. My experience is that the C-suite level execs want their subordinates to take diversity training and get coaching, but they are not willing to go through it themselves. Do you have any suggestions on how to get them more engaged? And then in this case, specifically white male leaders. So one of the ways we work in an organization in terms of creating that buy-in, I mentioned the top down. At the top, think about what they care about, what's important to them. They want to know the bottom line impact. They want to know it's going to make a difference. For themselves, of course, it's their time commitments, their, hey, does this really matter? So if I go back to what we did in coach training, we looked at the return on investment studies. Well, for an individual, yeah, they can say, oh, that's great for the organization, give it to the organization, just like you're saying. How do they make it personal? You've got to pull out the research, the studies that back up the impact it has on them, on that individual executive in the C-suite. So they want to know that impact. And there are studies out there, so you've got to make it personal to them. The biggest piece is, how do you even have a conversation with them? Because we've got to get our foot in the door and get them into the conversation before we can even talk to them about the possibility of coaching and coaching for diversity, etc. So if I can have the research, bring that in, you've got to have people around them that are believers in the process and that will help you get in the door. When you do have the conversation, here's what I'm going to say. Use your coaching skills in that conversation. So instead of telling them anything, ask them questions. What does it mean to them? What do they want out of it? What are the pros and cons for them personally of investing their time and energy into working with the coach? And explore it that way. Because when you take a coaching approach to it, then it's them coming to the decision, just like it works in any other conversation. So I hope that's helpful. That's a couple of things of getting in there. And if you have a follow-up question, let me know. So, okay. And a follow-up to that, white males are the most challenging group in my experience. Some find the term white privilege is insulting and threatening. So you go in with a lot of research data, it seems more of an emotional reaction. Makes sense. One thing I can say is, in the coaching world, there's an organization called ACTO, the Association of Coach Training Organizations. And ACTO has taken a public stand on diversity and inclusion, connection, etc. And so we're literally out there. We just did a conference in June, and the entire focus of the conference was on diversity and inclusion. And we had some fabulous presentations. And I think what I noticed is what you're talking about here in your question, that some of the presentations felt like an attack to some of the people in the audience. Some of the presentations really drew them in, and it was how it was presented. So it's making sure that the presentation is, hey, this isn't about right or wrong or anything else. It's about awareness. It's about, hey, what's going to be the best for getting where they want to go. And taking that kind of approach is going to make a difference. It will help if there's somebody, and this may be tough reality, it will help if there's somebody in their network that they see as the same or similar that is supporting this effort, because they can respect that. They can hear it oftentimes from somebody that is like them, that they know and are comfortable with. That may be a starting point. Is that where we want it to be? Of course not. So it's a process. It's how we approach it. I hope that's helping. I'm gonna keep going here. So when you think about coaching teams, the coach is there to empower the team to decide on their focus, to decide on their approach, and to choose their strategies. So what's happening is they're working with them as a group and bringing them together. So just like we talked about the conflict coaching, here what we're talking about is the coach working with the team so that they in turn are working together. That's huge in terms of the diversity and inclusion piece, because if they all figure out how to work together in each of these areas, it supports maintaining a diverse group and doing so in a way that's effective. So the coach is there coaching the teams, coaching for individuals. So yes, starting at the top, working with the leaders, individual contributors, and according to Harvard Business Review, 12% of the time, coaches are brought in to address derailing behaviors. This is where you have the challenge piece. So it's getting the coaches in there, working with people, addressing these very topics. So what are some coaching questions that will support diversity? And let's play with that. And here's what I'm going to ask. I'm going to throw out some questions, and I'm going to ask you to contribute questions as well, because I'm looking at who's here, and I know many of you. There are some faces I'm unfamiliar with, and I know you know coaching. So what are your coaching questions to support diversity? Add to that, type in the question panel if you want to raise your hand, whatever it is. So here's a few to get you started, and I'm watching for you to add in the question panel. So asking somebody, what is your thinking about people who are different? What do you think they think? Let's see, here's one in the question panel. What does diversity mean to you? Excellent, I love that question. What thinking is respectful? This is an interesting one to me to really get to the heart of the matter. How does your thinking impact workplace relationships? How do your feelings impact workplace relationships? Somebody asked very similar. So we have, what does diversity mean to you, or how do you define diversity? So similar questions, and I'm guessing you're going to get different responses with those. So that's awesome. So exploring. And here's another one. What are ideal parameters for workplace relationships? And keep coming with your questions. I've got some more too. So here we go. What are the reasons for having different people work together? What are the benefits of having different people work together? What are appropriate ground rules for different people working together? How does having different people working together add value? How can you maximize the variety of skills and perspectives? So, what other questions do all of you think are going to help people explore diversity and develop that level of openness that we're seeking? And it's so interesting, because to me that we're in the 20th century and this is still a challenge just doesn't even make sense. To me, it's just, hey, this is a norm a norm of having diversity, connecting with everybody is huge. Somebody asked the question, is there a connection between trust and diversity? Love that. And if we make it open-ended, we can say, what is the connection between trust and diversity? So fun. That's awesome. I am ready to move into talking about resources, that kind of thing. I want to pause for a moment to see if somebody's got an additional question to share or a scenario you're dealing with that we can talk about. So we had a great one earlier from Helene that we talked about. What's another situation that some of you are experiencing where you're wondering how coaching can support addressing it? And I'm for the sake of making sure we have time to address it. Oh, we've got age diversity is one. All right, here's another comment. It is amazing that it is still an issue. Yeah, absolutely agree with that. And then the perspective is that the white male patriarchy is still very much in power and doesn't want to let it go. So I'm going to say, there's definitely a white male patriarchy. We know they're in power. Do some of them want to let it go and some of them want to keep it? I'm gonna hope for that because I don't know what they do or don't want or are not willing to do. And I'm going to go in with the attitude of, I believe ultimately we're going to get there because the bottom line is whether or not they want it and like it, it's coming. And it's going to happen. So let's go at it looking for the best possible outcome and expecting it, because that's how we support it. And sounds like I've got an agreement there. Because you said, me too, hope for it. Demographics are on our side. Yes. Age diversity, Kimberly, I think it's very much like some of the other challenges we face. Because if you think about it, diversity addresses so many things. It's socioeconomic, it's culture, it's race, it's sexual orientation, it's religious, it's gender, and it's also age. That's a big piece of it. I know that so many workplaces are having the conversation about having 4 generations in one workplace, and that's a new thing. And how do they deal with it? And I think it's similar to the conversations we all have about different personal styles. There isn't a right or wrong. It's what is it and how do we work with that? So for example, we talk about personal styles in class. I'm going to say, think about age differences as one of those personal styles. And what's the mentality? What's the attitude? So how do they approach things? Because people approach work differently. And learn from it. And what does that mean in terms of who does what tasks, how you manage, what the strategies are, etc. It's there, it's a given. It's exploring what it is, developing a working understanding of what it is, and then figuring out how to tap it and maximize it. Yes, excellent comment, Helene. Disabilities are another major diversity issue. All of it is. And perhaps some of you have heard the comment, there's no such thing as a normal person, or if somebody says they're normal, that's abnormal. So it's diversity is here. It absolutely is here. We've got all kinds of different people. And to me, that's a fabulous, exciting thing. We want to maximize that. Let's see. Oh, mindfulness is, that's a great tip. Here it is, everyone. She finds mindfulness to be very helpful in having more of an open mind. She asked leaders to start with 3-minute meditations. So that's one technique, one approach. That's awesome. And there are so many more. Okay, we are running short on time. I definitely want to watch for more questions. Happy to hang around again afterwards. So do know you've got lots of resources available. I mentioned the International Coach Federation here, and you know what's so funny? I'm thinking, how did I not mention ACTO and the ACTO stand on diversity? So in a minute, if at the end, I'm going to pull that up and show that as well. So the International Coach Federation is at coachfederation.org. At the Center for Coaching Certification, we are very much interested in supporting the diversity. The Center for Coaching Solutions is a resource in terms of coaching programs. So we offer support in starting a coaching program, running it, managing it. We also offer coaches. We place our graduates in those roles, so we have some great quality control there. For those of you that are graduates, I know we've got some contracts coming up. We also provide coach training inside organizations and support on whatever level is appropriate for you. Available to everyone also. We do have a blog. Recently, we did a series on diversity, loved it. It was a lot of fun doing it. And I'm hoping some of you want to do a guest blog on this topic because it's such a great topic and we'd love to put your guest blog out there. We do publish a book every year, and there are some great chapters in these books that talk about diversity. And so that's an opportunity for more information. And then, of course, the ongoing monthly webinars that we offer for free. We are available if you just want to do a quick check for a call or an email, get a question answered, get some information. And we're available for outsourcing for coaching programs, coach training, and coaching services. The real key is the question for you. Now what? So one thing that I like to do is, if this is an area where you want to explore more and have more support, I want to give you 30 minutes and we can start talking about that and figure out what makes sense for you. It's also up to you to define your own action plan. So in terms of action plan, you review coach training. You intentionally apply your skills, you complete your coach training, and think about engaging a coach for yourself. I have somebody asking the question on CEU certificate. So these programs that we do, if you're renewing your coach certification with us, what you do is you track it yourself. And when it comes time to do your renewal and you're submitting all your hours, you simply send in your log. If you're looking to use it elsewhere, then the recommendation to you is find out what they require and then you can self-submit. So some places will accept programs you attend. You probably have to share with them an agenda, what was covered, etc., and see if they'll approve it. So you figuring out your action plan. I'm going to skip through to this last slide and I'm going to hold it there because I'm going to sneak out of this PowerPoint and go pull up the ACTO website so we can pull up their stand on diversity and inclusion. And so in the meantime, if you've got additional questions, please go ahead and submit those while I'm getting this pulled up. Let's see. So we've got and I'm searching online, everyone, so that I can show you the ACTO stand on diversity and inclusion. And what's so exciting about this is because it's very much about talking to coach training schools and promoting diversity and inclusion throughout. The key to it is I am simply not sure the exact place to find it, so I'm looking for it. And so I apologize for my hesitation there while I'm looking. And in the meantime, I am monitoring the question panel. It looks like we're complete there. So I'm on ACTO's website looking at information, and so I'm going to share that with all of you. And that was a good comment. So Helene wrote, she said, I appreciate the fact that your slides do show diversity. And when I did the series of articles on diversity and inclusion, here we go. Here's the ACTO stand for diversity and inclusion. Let's take a look at this one right here, everybody. It's on the website. And so it says, ACTO is committed to creating diversity, inclusion, and belonging in the coaching profession through calling forth, honoring, and inviting the uniqueness of all individuals and diverse life experiences. In support of this stand, we acknowledge and are committed to eliminating the negative impact of personal and systemic bias, privilege, and oppression, which may be conscious or unconscious, intentional or unintentional, overt or subtle. As coach trainers, we are tasked with creating the future of the coaching profession. We commit to providing dialogue, learning, and resources, and to cultivating personal and organizational responsibility in alignment with this stand at ACTO for each of our students, members, and member organizations. So absolutely love it. We're so excited about making this the new norm. And it really is every single person out there being a part of that. So glad to share that. Hope that helps everybody and answers that question. I know we've used up our time. I'm happy to hang around if you have additional questions. I'm going to go ahead and based on what I'm seeing, I think it's time to end the recording. I'm seeing all the thanks. Glad it was helpful. Glad we had this conversation. So I'll go ahead and stop the recording. If anybody has those off-topic conversations you want to have, we can do that. So thank you, everyone.